Hey guys, it's Harley. Welcome to Big Deeds video number 2 relating to keto and fasting. So in the last video, I would discuss the benefits of a ketogenic diet and fasting, especially where you're fasting in the morning time, and also the benefits of the insulin effect from there because you keep your insulin low. Now, we're going to talk some more about the same topic. So starting with insulin, as I said before, insulin is a fat-storing hormone. So when your blood glucose is high and you consume certain foods that cause your blood glucose to spike, insulin is spiked. And that causes your blood glucose to be stored as fat in your body cells. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is growth hormone. Growth hormone is high when insulin is low, and growth hormone is low when insulin is high. Growth hormone is a great fat burning and muscle building hormone. So if you, as in my last video, follow the regimen where you are fasting in the morning and working out in the morning, that is great because your growth hormone is high, your insulin is low, and you are able to burn fat and build muscle. There are the other benefits that I talked about because you also have the clear-minded benefits where you have a clear head and have a lot of mental energy. Also, you don't have a lot of blood tied up in your gut, which is working to digest your food, so your blood is able to be in your muscles. Or in your brain if you're doing some mental work, and you save the time that is associated with cooking, cleaning, and pooping. So now next we're going to talk about why keto is important. Also, why fasting is important, because as I said before, keto and fasting go hand in hand. When you're fasting, you get into a ketogenic state. Ketogenic state is any time when you are devoid of carbs, devoid of a high glycemic food or high glycemic nutrient. When you're fasting, you are devoid of that because you aren't consuming anything. When you're keto, you're devoid of the carbohydrate because you avoid it in your diet. So, one of the biggest reasons why keto or fasting is important is because you are avoiding the carbohydrates associated with the standard American diet, also abbreviated as SAD, which is SAD. So, the high carbohydrates associated with the standard American diet can cause you to spike your blood glucose. And then, when you spike your blood glucose, your insulin is secreted, your insulin spikes. And then, insulin, being a fat-storing hormone, takes the blood glucose and stores it as fat in your body cells. Then, your blood glucose is low, and you don't feel so great. So what are you going to do? You want to eat some food that spikes your blood glucose. So you eat some more carbohydrates or sugars, and then it spikes your blood glucose again. And the insulin comes in again because that's the natural course of things, and it stores it as fat in your body cells. So you can kind of see a vicious cycle coming about. There's a vicious cycle of blood glucose spiking because of the consumption of carbohydrates or sugar, and insulin spiking because that is their body's natural reaction to a high blood glucose. Eventually, this happens over and over again, and the lowering of the blood glucose caused by the insulin causes you to eat more, and this vicious cycle causes for a bombardment of your body in time of insulin. So your body receives so many different waves of insulin, and this results in what's called metabolic syndrome, because the insulin is coming in waves, and your body becomes resistant. Your body cells become resistant to the insulin, and those body cells do not receive the signal. Eventually, this results in what's called insulin resistance, because your body cells become resistant to that signal and they do not respond. So your body is secreting, or your pancreas is secreting the insulin, and your body is not responding by not receiving that blood glucose and storing it as fat. So it's not taking it out of the bloodstream. So what is your body going to do? It's going to secrete more insulin. So your body starts secreting higher and higher levels of insulin. Eventually, the end result is, in addition to your body cells becoming resistant to the insulin, your pancreas is going to become burnt out. It is not going to be able to secrete insulin as well. So your pancreas, the beta cells in your pancreas start to become burnt out. They're supposed to secrete the insulin. So not only your body cells resistant to responding to the insulin, but your pancreas is losing its ability to secrete the insulin because it's burnt out. So this whole different vicious cycle that I talked about is known as metabolic syndrome. So we want to talk also about other ways in which the ketogenic diet is important. The ketogenic diet is also important because it also improves your cholesterol profile, increasing your good cholesterol, also known as HDL, and lowering your bad cholesterol, also known as LDL. Also, in times, it's been seen to lower total triglycerides. So this puts you at a better state in which you can resist cardiovascular disease. So, which brings us to the four big killers. The four big killers are cancer, cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's, and diabetes. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I already discussed about how metabolic syndrome can cause this type of situation. But specifically relating to cardiovascular disease, the improved cholesterol profile puts you at a better status to prevent for cardiovascular disease. The fact that you are avoiding diabetes and avoiding high blood sugar and blood spikes helps you to improve your chances of preventing diabetes. The diet is also anti-cancer because cancer cannot thrive in a high glucose environment. It can persist, but it will not thrive in a high glucose environment because cancer cells love glucose, and ketones are anti-carcinogenic. There also is Alzheimer's, also known as diabetes number 3. You've all heard of diabetes number 1 and diabetes number 2. Diabetes number 1 is where your pancreas cannot secrete insulin. Diabetes number 2 is where your pancreas might not be able to secrete insulin because it's a situation where it's burnt out and it's been secreting insulin for so long, it cannot secrete it anymore. Diabetes number 3 is Alzheimer's, which is causing an effect in the brain that is caused ultimately by the metabolic syndrome. So why is diabetes so important in all of this? Diabetes causes what's called glycation. So you have a situation where you have high blood glucose and it is not being taken care of by insulin. And so the body cells are not taking that insulin out of the bloodstream because they're stopped responding from the insulin, and the pancreas is not secreting the insulin because it's burnt out. So the blood glucose persists. So you have a high blood glucose, and then you get the high HbA1c. This is a measure of 3 months of average blood glucose. And a high HbA1c means that you have high blood glucose, and the glucose attaches itself to the hemoglobin of the red blood cells. And that prevents your ability to carry oxygen on the hemoglobin, because the hemoglobin is your body's way of carrying oxygen. So the oxygen cannot bind because the glucose is already bound to it. And there also is, because of the high blood glucose, there is glycation, because the glucose combines with proteins to cause glycation in the body. And that glycation causes cardiovascular problems, neuropathy, and also atherosclerosis because of the high insulin that is associated with metabolic syndrome. There is an influx of insulin, and that causes atherosclerosis. That's why there's a lot of blindness in diabetes patients. The small capillaries of the eyes get clogged due to atherosclerosis. And there are other very sad effects of metabolic syndrome. The small capillaries in the fingers and the toes become clogged, and the end result is amputation of the fingers and the toes. And that's why on Two Keto Dudes, you see the motto, French fries are not better than toes. Toes are better than French fries.
Yeah.
In the absence of carbohydrates, your body produces ketones. Your body produces ketones during the processing of fatty acids, which your body uses fatty acids for fuel. And your body also, your liver specifically, produces ketones in the absence of carbohydrates. Ketones are an anti-inflammatory molecule. So your body produces ketones to keep you going. Ketones are very special. Ketones produce more ATP per molecule as compared to glucose. Also, it produces less side products, less inflammatory side products than does ketones. So your body, when it is producing ketones, it's a more efficient and a less inflammatory process than is glucose metabolism. Because it's less inflammatory, and because inflammation is what causes a lot of the aging in older folks, the body is in a less inflammatory state and it is an anti-aging state. So, the next thing I want to talk about is anti-anxiety. Because you're less inflammation, you also, because your body is producing less inflammatory molecules, you are also in a less anxious state. So a lot of people report, and me myself, I report that you experience less anxiety in the ketogenic state than you do in a regular glucose burning state. All right, guys, this is the end of the video. I am glad you came to visit. I'm glad you watched this video. Before I end the video, I wanted to shout out to a few folks which I learned a lot from. The first is Two Keto Dudes. Two Keto Dudes is an amazing podcast. They have a ketogenic forum in which you can learn a lot from. Carl and Richard in Two Keto Dudes are absolute geniuses. Absolute geniuses. Thomas DeLauer is another genius, and Dom D'Agostino is another genius. Please Google them, and you will learn a lot from their knowledge of the ketogenic metabolism. That's it for us, guys. Please subscribe. Please like this video. Please put in your comments in the comment section, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you. Have a good day.